Nadiya, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm wondering if you could summarize in just 2 or 3 sentences, what was your point?
The main point is that there was a larger issue, or a larger structure to what the conflict that took place in Ukraine, and the larger structure was that there was a disagreement between EU on the one hand and Russia on the other about this neighborhood. Two competing enlargement processes were happening at the same time, and Ukrainians and Ukrainian government were stuck in between. And the fact that they couldn't come up with a compromise on this was very much a part of why we're having this bloody conflict today.
Right.
The second part to my argument overall has been that overall Ukraine's pro-European integration has changed its nature. So for the last 2 decades, it's pretty much has been a top-down process.
Yeah.
Elite-driven, bureaucracy-driven. But over the last 5 years, one can say that we had a development of a bottom-up movement, a genuine movement that understands what Europe is all about, that understands what EU is all about, and wants that specifically for the reasons of modernizing the economy, aside from the fact that, returning to Europe and being part of Europe from a normative perspective. So I think that there's these 2 main elements to the story that we're seeing. And of course, solution to this conflict is what everybody's thinking about. And solution will have to include this idea of Ukraine's European integration, and how will powers such as EU and Russia resolve this.
Yeah.
And currently, it's in a zero-sum calculation mode. And the idea is to create peace, or to move towards a peaceful solution, we'll need to resolve and bring it into a positive sum kind of calculus.
Yeah. And how does this fit in, if at all, with your larger project? I know you're working on several books right now, but does this fit into a larger project?
So my previous work, or the work of my doctoral dissertation and now a book on domestic politics of Ukraine's foreign policy, is very much explaining this oscillation that Ukraine has shown in its integration vis-a-vis EU.
And about gas as well,
and
right?
About gas, certainly. That it's going between the 2 integration projects, going between two modes of economies, has been very much part of the post-Soviet story in Ukraine. But there seems to be now a desire, not just from the elites and from the bureaucracy, but from the population, to adopt this European way of doing business, of managing its economic relations. So I think that certainly that's reflected in my forthcoming book. The project going forward is to look at how Russia has managed relations with other former Soviet republics. So Ukraine certainly is not an example of a good. If you like, a good example of how to successfully manage your relations with a regional power.
Yeah.
And this is sort of the reality. But what I'm looking now sort of intellectually is to see how other neighbors of Russia have managed their relations. And for example, Kazakhstan is usually coming up in the discussions as a successful case of being able to modernize, do a lot of things, and yet manage this balanced and more sovereign, independent relations vis-a-vis Russia as well. So that's
So you're working on more of a comparative aspect, ultimately.
Yes.
Yeah. Fantastic. So what has it been like as a political scientist to watch the events of the last year in Ukraine?
Well, it's been both interesting, very draining, because I'm not just a political scientist. I'm also somebody who comes from Ukraine. I have, that's my heritage, and I have a lot of friends and colleagues, as many political scientists who study Ukraine and the region have. So of course, this has been also a personal story in many ways, and trying to disassociate the 2 and trying to look at it with a very sober eyes, I think has been the most difficult thing to do for everybody, not just me. And trying to be honest, manage the stress levels, I think has been quite significant. I think all of us living through Maidan events have experienced the shock and trauma, and just calming yourself down and going into a less stressful mode of existence. Unfortunately, that's still not happening for many Ukrainians, and I think that's something that certainly is in the back of my mind. And
a major factor.
Yeah, and a major factor. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to going back to Ukraine. I'm hoping to go back in the next several months to do more research, to meet with friends, to just be there for them as well, and support them on a personal level.
Yeah.
But as a political scientist, of course, trying to explain some of these events and take away lessons, that some of which we've been discussing, lessons for how we can do it better, how to resolve this, lessons for posterity, lessons for other conflicts in the world. So yes.
Fantastic. Well, I wish you luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.